Hey guys, it's Devin, the occupational therapist with Inland Therapy Pathways. I just wanted to share a couple thoughts I've had as I've been reading this book, The Coddling of the American Mind. It's by Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. It's a book that talks about how our kids in general are kind of becoming these, he wants to call them fragile adults because of the experiences that they're not getting as children. And as I was reading through it, it's a good book. I would recommend it to anyone. But there are two particular chapters that stood out to me, Chapter 8 and Chapter 9. Chapter 8 is called Paranoid Parenting, and Chapter 9 is The Decline of Play. So I wanted to do a couple little videos going over a few of the points that stood out to me as a therapist and really resonated with kind of the theory and model of how we provide therapy here at Inland Therapy Pathways. But the first part I wanted to talk about was in the paranoid parenting section. And, I'm a parent. I have 4 kids that I love. But as we parent today, there's a lot of times, and I see this a lot, is we like to overparent. We like to provide our kids with the success of learning without giving them the opportunity to learn. So we want to give them the answers without letting them internalize and learn from their mistakes, and really learn in the way that we did. As kids, a lot of times growing up, I was never home. I was outside riding my bike. My parents didn't know where I was, and that was okay. And so he starts off this one section that's called The Dangers of Safetyism. And he talks about, the Facebook posts that we all seen, like, oh, here's 10 reasons why kids from the 70s should be dead. Because we didn't use sunscreen, we used tanning oils, we didn't wear bike helmets, things like that are kind of, it's made to be comical, but kind of brings up some points of like, hey, we did a lot of stupid stuff. Have we learned and grown as a society? Yes, there's a lot of improvements we've made. We don't smoke around kids as much anymore. Kids are buckled up in seatbelts. Those are good things. But he talks about how in this safetyism, we are trying to overprotect our kids in a way that takes away their ability to develop a sense of immunity to things. So almost like we're bubble wrapping our kids from opportunities to learn and grow and experience growth as a human. So it's the one part that I really liked. He said, we believe the efforts to protect children from environmental hazards and vehicular accidents have been very good for children. Exposure to lead and cigarette smoke confer no benefits. Being in a car crash without a seatbelt does not make kids more resilient in future car crashes. But efforts to protect kids from risk by preventing them from gaining experience, such as walking to school, climbing a tree, or using sharp scissors, are different. Such protections come with costs, as kids miss out on opportunities to learn skills, independence, and risk assessment. Keeping them indoors also raises the risk of obesity. Put succinctly, the problem with this everything is dangerous outlook is that overprotectiveness is a danger in and of itself. And he goes on to talk about this researcher who was saying, she's met parents who won't let their 17-year-old take the subway by themselves. And it's like, well, what's your long-term strategy? What are you gonna do when you're not around and they have to get to a job that you can't take them to? They don't know how to ride the subway. What are you gonna do? And so she was talking about how, she sees all these parenting styles of overprotecting, overparenting her kids. And so she says, so here I was, highly critical of parents who couldn't let go of their own college students. And then one day, when my kid was 10, I leaned over at dinner and began cutting his meat. And I realized in that moment, holy cow, I'm cutting his meat and he's 10. I was babysitting other kids when I was 10, but my own kid needs to have his meat cut. What the hell is up with that? And so she talks about how, as parents, we want to protect our kids, but then we're robbing them of opportunities to learn. Like, when I trip and fall, it's not the end of the world. I can get up and keep going. When I fall from a tree, there is that chance of getting hurt. But what does the kid learn from that? They improve their balance. They improve their awareness of how hard they're holding on, or how loosely they're holding on. They gain that sense of risk analysis of, hey, if I step on this branch, it feels like it might not hold me. So if I put too much weight on it, it's gonna break and I'm gonna fall. If the tree's wet, I'm going to have to do things different than if the tree's dry. They don't learn those opportunities if we aren't giving them the opportunities to get those experiences. When's the last time you saw a kid climbing a tree? Any kid, your kid or anyone else. My wife and I were walking around the neighborhood the other day, and we realized there's very little basketball courts outside on the streets anymore, and there was no kids. There were no kids on the streets at all. And not like in the street, but like there's no kids outside playing, period. There's so much time spent indoors. So as nature-based therapists, we're trying to counter that and really use kind of this overprotection model as a means of how do we give kids this experience to learn risk analysis, to try new things, to develop skills that they need that they're not getting in traditional therapy or in school settings, and just in their daily life. They're not playing, and that's kind of the next chapter. They're not playing like they used to, and so the skills that they're not developing are harming them in the long run. Goes on to talk about how, as parents, we get more time with our kids now. We have more time to spend with them. We don't really have to worry about, hey, I have 6 kids, one of them's probably not going to survive like they used to hundreds of years ago. Then he said, parents spending time with their kids is generally a good thing, but too much close supervision and protection can morph into safetyism. Safetyism takes children who are anti-fragile by nature and turns them into young adults who are more fragile and anxious, and therefore more receptive to the untruth of fragility. What doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Going along with the idea of some paranoid parenting, here are some safe books for safe kids. It's parody, but it'll kind of give you a kick. Oh, the Places You Won't Go. The Playdates of Huckleberry Finn. Harold and the Purple Sofa. Encyclopedia Brown Solves the Worksheet. Harry Potter and the Sit Still Challenge. Dora in the Ford Explorer, but not without a parent. And all of this is to kind of say, so in this book, the authors reference the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb quite a bit, talking about how our kids are missing out on this opportunity to become anti-fragile, or the idea of what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. We need these opportunities to experience pain, to experience learning, so that we can become stronger, more resilient adults. So in the sum of chapter 8, the paranoid parenting, says children today have far more restricted childhoods on average than those enjoyed by their parents, who grew up in far more dangerous times and yet had many more opportunities to develop their intrinsic anti-fragility. Compared with previous generations, younger millennials, and especially members of iGen that were born in or after 95, have been deprived of unsupervised time for play and exploration. They have missed out on many of the challenges, negative experiences, and minor risks that help children develop into strong, competent, and independent adults. And that's kind of going to segue us into this next section that we'll talk about later. But again, a big belief of the method that we use here in our outdoor therapy services for kids is we want to give them, part of each session is unsupervised play, where they are the ones in charge. They're the ones doing with what's available what they want. They're not being told by an adult how to play, what to play, when to play, who to play with. They develop this sense of what social interaction looks like with their peers, with their friends, through play, because play that is supervised is play that is different than unstructured, unsupervised play. And not that we leave them and just say, hey, have fun playing, we're gonna check out and be back in an hour. That's not it at all, because we want to make sure they're safe. But if we're over supervising and over adulting them, it robs them of their creativity, their ability to wonder, to have a sense of learning that comes from trying things with their peers that may or may not work. When I want to do this and my friend wants to do this and we don't get along, how do we come to an agreement of what we both want to do? A lot of times when that happens, parents come in and say, hey, let's do this other thing, or Timmy, why don't you share with Johnny, because he looks like he wants to play with it. And that's not how kids learn. That's That's being told what to do, and no one likes to be told what to do. I hate it. Most people do. So when we step in and do that to our kids, we're robbing them of that experience of being able to learn how to develop those appropriate social interactions. And that's what we're going for in our therapy groups, is we want to give them opportunities to be unsupervised in a way that we're not telling them how to play. You know, if there's a kid one day that just doesn't want to share, we're not going to step in and force them to share, because I've been around people that don't share with me, and as an adult, I can't just throw a tantrum and tell someone else and make them force the other person to share with me. That's not how life works. So again, great book, The Coddling of the American Mind. I recommend it to anyone. We're going to go over more of it later, but wanted to share those thoughts with you.